Hey YouTube, today's video is going to be about hygiene. And off-grid living hygiene is pretty important. I find if you feel gross, things get gross. If your space is messy, dirty, you're not going to feel very good. And that usually starts with the self. If you feel gross and dirty, the rest of your building, apart, whatever, gets gross and dirty. So, off-grid hygiene. Some people worry about it. You can't turn a faucet and run a shower, so how do you clean yourself? People wonder that question. And then you're brushing your teeth. So we're going to start with teeth brushing here. I mean, it should be pretty self-explanatory. If you've got a toothbrush and some toothpaste, you use that. You can spit out you can go outside, brush your teeth and spit it out. You can spit it into a cup and then dump that cup later. Whatever you want to do with that, and you can rinse your mouth out. Whatever. If you got Listerine, you want to use some sort of mouthwash, you can use that too. Now, in situations where you don't have easy access to toothpaste and a toothbrush, what you can do is you can take charcoal. You take your charcoal, you break it up into a fine powder, and you make a bit of a paste with it with a bit of water, and you put some on your finger, and you can scrub your teeth like that. And it actually works pretty well. Although it is quite hard on the teeth, so you will use it, but just keep that in mind. If you have a toothbrush, toothpaste, just use that instead. And it also leaves a bit of a weird taste in the mouth. But you can still definitely use that as a method, and it's not bad for you. I mean, everybody says burnt stuff is carcinogenic, whatever, carbon is carcinogenic, which I'm sure it is, but everything else is too, apparently. So in an off-grid situation, taking care of your teeth with a bit of a carcinogenic charcoal is not a problem. Just rinse out afterwards, spit it out wherever, right? Now, for people worried about attracting animals, if they're going to be using toothpaste and toothbrush off-grid, don't worry about it. If you spit it out right on your right out the front door of your cabin or whatever, an animal comes along and you start spotting it, well, there's either dinner or a new rug. So don't be worried about that sort of stuff either. I mean, it wouldn't be very great if you were gone and a bear came in and did that, started trying to get into the cabin. But for the most part, if a bear wanted to get in your cabin, I doubt it would just be a bit of toothpaste paste outside that really attracted it to that area. Because, you cook, clean everything in there. So there's all these scents coming from the place regardless. But it's dinner. Or a new rug or clothing or whatever. Okay, and then the next thing here is bathing. In the summer, obviously, if you're near a water source like a creek, a stream, a lake, a river, whatever, you can obviously hop in there, rinse off. Might be a bit cold in the spring and the fall, but if you saw my first video at this cabin here, it's an ASMR video. I was bathing in the water and it was about 13 degrees outside. I kept that up until I think October 28th or something like that, when it started to get below zero during the evenings or the nights. So I sort of stopped that practice because I went in one day, legs were freezing up. I said, I'm not going to be able to do this anymore. So I stopped doing that. But you can do that. And you can use soap as you normally would. If you're worried about the environment and all that, you can use a natural biodegradable soap. And if you're even worried about that, well, even just scrubbing your body really well of all the dirt will help clean you off as well. You'll smell like lake. You won't smell like, some fancy soap. But it will work. It'll clean you off. It'll make you feel better. It'll get rid of the oil, the dirt. You can just scrub yourself clean with your hands. If you wanted to, you could get moss as a sponge, whatever you want, right? You can sort of improvise as you go along. So you don't really need soap when you're trying to bathe off-grid. It is a nice thing to have, but worst case scenario, you don't really need it. You're just trying to get rid of all the oils that build up and the stink, right? Which can be brushed, for the most part, removed by just rubbing your body down. And then in the winter, obviously you're not going to be cutting a hole in the lake or the creek or whatever to try to bathe. Now you can. I recommend against it unless you're one of those polar bear swimmers that have been training for that sort of thing for a long time. Then hey, have at it. You're probably a professional at that already. But for the rest of us guys, best thing to do is get yourself a big pot. I mean a big pot. And what you do is you just fill that pot with a bunch of snow, melt it down till you got about 4 to 6 liters. You don't need a lot of water really to bathe. And what you do is you just take a cup. You can use a bucket. This is a Home Depot bucket. It came with the place I got right now, so I'm using it. And then just a cup like this. This is just some old thing was used for forks and knives and whatever plastic disposable ones. So that works as something just to scoop some water. You slowly pour it over yourself until you're wet. You put on your soap, lather up, and then rinse with the bucket, just a few cups at a time. Don't dump the whole thing on your head. You won't probably clean off yourself as well as just doing a bit at a time. Now, in situations where you don't have a bucket, a cup, say you're camping, whatever, what you can do is you can just set up a fire beside you, nice big fire, not too big, then you'll have to stand too far back and you'll be cold. So a nice decent fire. You take some snow in your hand and you start rubbing that snow on your body. That snow will act, it's a bit abrasive usually, especially when it's packed down, or if it's wet snow, it's quite abrasive. So it'll help remove any, dead skin, dirt, oil, stuff like that, right, from your body. So that works as well. And then obviously if you wanted to use soap, I would recommend against it with just snow, but it can be done. You're just going to need to be out in the cold, naked or whatever, for a longer period of time. But if you have a fire beside you and somewhere, maybe you keep your shoes on when you're doing this, of course, if you're out in the snow, unless you have somewhere that's dry to stand, just so you don't get frostbite on your legs. And obviously it's all depending how cold it is. So that's another big thing. Bathing off-grid is usually determined by the weather. If it's minus 30 and blizzard outside, you're not going to bathe. You're going to be inside. So when the weather isn't favorable for that sort of thing, the next best option is either just inside. Do it inside if you have an area to do that. So what I mean by that is you just get a damp cloth or whatever, and you just wipe yourself down. Say you don't have a damp cloth, or you don't want to, risk getting water droplets or whatever around the cabin. Say you're worried about who knows what messing up your floor, because if you have a dirt floor or whatever, right? If you have an old traditional type cabin. And baby wipes. Everybody talks about these. All the campers talk about these baby wipes, and they work great. These are just flushable wipes. I don't think they're specifically for babies, but you can use these. You only use them on the parts that really start to stink, like the crotch, the bum, and your armpits. That's pretty much the only places you would use something like that. If your face is really feels gross and oily, which it can, then you could use a baby wipe on your face as well. So that's pretty much how you clean yourself off grid. That's your hygiene routine, all this and that. It's pretty basic stuff. But a lot of people, they sit there and they wonder, how am I supposed to do this if I can't turn a faucet or whatever? And I get it. A lot of people are worried about SHTF, whatever, and they try to figure out, how am I supposed to bathe or keep myself clean? Some people, they talk about just not cleaning, and I'm sitting here like, okay. But another thing, actually, before we end this video, was hair. Your hair in off-grid. Now, as you can notice, I shave my head pretty regularly, as well as I shave my facial hair. Reason why is because it's a lot easier to keep yourself clean when you don't have a big beard filling up with your body oil. You know what I mean? It gets oily. Beards are not good. You're gonna get oil or grease on your hair, in your beard, just from day-to-day activities, sweating, and just the fact that faces get oily, so it gets into your beard, gets knotted. It's hard to maintain and keep clean. So it's always best to just keep yourself clean shaven if you can, and shave your head if you can. It's just a lot easier that way. You don't have to worry about tangles, knots, and all that. If you are going to have long hair, make sure maybe braid it, put it in braids, or do like the Rastas do and just get a bunch of dreadlocks. But at the end of the day, it's hard to maintain, so consider maybe just keeping yourself shaven clean, shaved, right? Anyway, I think that's about it for this video. So if you guys enjoyed this sort of content, make sure to check out my channel. And as always, be safe and have fun.